Things like this don't happen in the afternoon. 3 times a week or 2 times a day. Well, I was just sitting there eating alone, and I didn't expect a call from you. Things like this were meant to open your eyes, to give you a chance to wait for me there. Still I see you sinking right back to sleep, and I have no more use for you.
Welcome to BTS Presents. My name is Greg Tennant. I'm your host for this episode. This is part 2 of our panel of Santa Cruz media producers. On our last episode, we heard from 3 of our guests. We have a new guest tonight. Would you please introduce yourself and tell us a little thumbnail of what you do?
Hi, my name is Brian Shulman. I'm the producer of the BTS Presents show. Thanks for watching here at CTV, Channel 27.
So I wanted to ask each of you, we ended the program last time with the question of how do you make this work? How do you make a living? Do you make a living as a media producer, or do you have a day job? Do you have several day jobs? It's a question that artists always have to deal with. What do you do to buy the groceries? Maybe you could just say your name for those who are just tuning in this time. And
My name is Miljkovic, and I have a business called Artists on Art. I've had it for almost 4 years now here in Santa Cruz, and I help people tell stories. And those stories, depending upon the content and the need of the story, different media can be used to convey that story. So sometimes people need a website, or they need a PowerPoint presentation for their 80th birthday party, or they need video archive for their kids. There's all kinds of ways that I help people here in Santa Cruz, and that's my day job.
so you're making a living doing media, doing art.
Yeah,
And how long have you been doing that?
almost 4 years now.
And what did it take to get that going? Was it, I don't know, did it take time? Was it difficult, or?
Yeah, it
pieces?
was very difficult. I started as a producer producing construction. I was a construction manager for 20 years here in the Bay Area. I helped build train stations mostly and new train tracks. And then in 1999, we bombed the former Yugoslavia, where I'm from, and I felt an incredible need to do something about it. I'd been a media maker my entire life from when I was a kid, starting with film and drawing on each little frame. And then I realized that if I didn't make a movie, I didn't make this movie, my heart was going to break. And so I started teaching myself how to use the editing. At the time, Final Cut had just come out. Digital media was just beginning. It was for the first time that a normal average person would be able to afford to buy a camera and to afford buying let's say a computer where you can do the editing. So I had to go up to San Francisco to learn how to do Final Cut. I tried to learn here in town, but it was very difficult. UC Santa Cruz has a very competitive program. It was very hard. The digital media program was just starting at Cabrillo, with best regards. And so I went to De Anza College also. And then in 2007, I went back to UCSC for my Master's in Fine Arts and Digital Arts and New Media. I was the 4th graduating class in that interdisciplinary program that's still going really strong up there on campus. From that, I was able to get my radio show. And then after I graduated in 2009, I made the vow that I would make work that only helped the earth. Like, I only would make work that helped the earth. And I've been working with eco artists and Helen and Newton Harrison of the Harrison Studio. They're world famous eco artists. I've been working with Paula, who helped start the organic garden, the Alan Chadwick Garden up at UCSC, and helped with the Homeless Garden Project. And so I have many clients that are really making a difference in the world, and I want to help amplify their message.
Now, I was working in film in Los Angeles, and I didn't want to raise my kids there. Plenty of people do, but I chose not to, which is why I came to Santa Cruz. And managing a family is one of the challenges if you have that as an artist. Do you have children or family?
Yeah, that's why we're here in Santa Cruz. It's for the kids.
Do you find difficulties being a full-time artist and taking care of a family? I mean, do they conflict, or how do you handle it?
It's an incredible challenge to be an artist and a mother and a wife and a daughter and all the different things that I think it's difficult for men and women, but it may be a little more difficult for mothers specifically, because although Brian, you being a full-time father, can totally relate how their needs take precedence. And so it's only in between the times that they're not needing parenting that I can do that. Luckily, my kids are older now, and my son's in college, my daughter's a junior in high school, and so for the first time in my life, I have time. Like when she started driving, I suddenly didn't have to take her to school anymore. Like so much more time, came up in my life, and it was tremendous. That just happened 6 months ago. So I'm just starting to feel like I can have more time to devote to my art.
Well, that's very interesting, because you sound like that's still quite a full resume that you listed, and even to say it's only now sort of turning back on again in the last 6 months, I don't know, it's still pretty incredible.
Well, I've started my 50th year, so I just turned 49.
Congratulations.
And I'm just starting to come into my full adult power.
Wonderful, awesome.
Yeah, it's been a long time coming.
And yeah, introduce yourself real quick. And
my name is Brent Adams. I have a company called Subcommandante Films. You can find it on YouTube. It's Subcommandante. I'm also in my 50th year, and I find it is a transitional period. I always wanted to be a filmmaker, but the way my life worked out, I didn't have the discipline early on to actually carry that vision forward. So I just moved to Santa Cruz because of its beauty, its psychedelic and progressive legacy, and I've had a great life here, working as a waiter. But about 10 years ago, as Nada said, some of the digital stuff started coming online, and I recognized very quickly that I could get into it at a low level. So little by little, and I've been very, I'd say, on the lower economic spectrum, and so acquiring the tools has been quite difficult, actually. I lost a job just as the Occupy movement had occurred, so I had just purchased my camera and a MacBook Pro with Final Cut on it, and so I found it a perfect opportunity for me to just videotape everything that happened in the Occupy movement in Santa Cruz. And a lot did happen, actually, behind the scenes, and you can see a full-length documentary that I've edited on Subcommandante Films. It's called What Are We Doing Here? What Are You Doing Here Inside Occupy Santa Cruz? At that point, though, I didn't have a job, and so I was, for maybe the second or third time in my life, experimenting with experiencing homelessness, living in a van, and then I got to know many homeless people in the Occupy movement, and I had been a street musician for the fun of it through the years, so I knew a lot of homeless people. What occurred right after the Occupy movement? Well, first I was part of a bank building takeover and still facing felony charges for that. If you can imagine, I'm being charged with felony vandalism. If I seem like somebody who's vandalizing things, then you might want to charge me for that. I don't think so far. We're still pre-trial though, so I won't mention that. But what I did was I decided to take on making documentary film, and so that, and if you've ever edited a 2-hour documentary, it's quite a challenge. So many shots and just organizing those. So that was a good 9-month project. And so I was living in my van and making almost no money. I did a firewood business on the side. I had been waiting tables, and I was a caregiver, all the low-end things that you can do around here. But rents have been skyrocketing, so it's harder and harder. Well, what I did in the last couple of years is I got so close to the homeless community that I wanted to make a documentary about that. And quite quickly, I got sucked right into advocacy and establishing a sanctuary village for homeless people as modeled after projects that work in the Northwest. And also we're doing a warming center. So now my day job, unpaid so far, as we're building a nonprofit, is homeless advocacy. And we are bringing in funds, but almost everything I make goes into these projects. I do some labor, I do wedding videos, Kickstarter videos, I do catering, really diversifying the income and still living as low as I can as we're honing these crafts and working on the things that really my passion is just kind of leading me. I don't have a long-term goal at all. Doesn't make me a very good catch for dating, but it definitely helps an interesting lifestyle.
And so, do you have family, children, or?
It's one of the blessings I have, or one of the curses. I don't have a family. I'm an uncle to 9 nieces and nephews, so that feels good. But I haven't experienced bringing a kid into my own world, into the world, and I'll be happy if I don't. But if it does happen, that would be amazing.
So I guess the responsibility, the burden, I guess, of looking after your own kids is something you haven't had to also carry along with everything else.
Yeah, that's why it's a blessing, and I'm really impressed by people who do that. Creative work, professional work, and raising a family is incredible.
So you've been making it work by keeping your costs down.
Yeah. Not having kids really helps me keep my costs down.
That's great. What do you do for a living?
Nothing. I did my time. I've been in the picture framing business. I've been in the restaurant business. I've been in my own business. And I stay home now. And I have people call me, and I do work for them.
How long have you been a media creator?
You mean doing TV?
Yeah.
Oh, 4 years.
It's just that long, so
Yeah.
not something you did throughout your life as...
I had no idea of ever doing it.
How did you get started?
Well, I started off, I came here when I sold my restaurant. I had a restaurant on Portola,
What was it called?
Paula's. It used to be Paula's Brooklyn Coffee House. When I sold it, the guy said, no, it's no more Brooklyn. I said, you paid for it, put whatever name you want up there, I don't care. So he left it as Paula's Coffee House. I sold that, and I started doing a business called The Jewish Mother. And I used to do bookkeeping for them, take care of them, so on and so forth. And then I gave that up, and one day I was walking down the block on Pacific Avenue, and I see CTV. I said, oh, this is interesting, and I come inside. And a man comes towards me, and he says, hello, Claire. I said, I'm not Claire. John, I'm Paula. He said, oh my God, what are you doing here? I said, I don't know, I'm looking to do some volunteer work. He said, you can do it here. Be at the counter. I said, okay, fine. He said, the bookkeeper's coming back, and when she comes back, she'll tell you what to do. I said, fine. So I started at the front desk, volunteering every single day from 11 to 4, and I loved it.
Wow.
I just loved it. And Kathy said to me, Paula, you're here so much, why don't you take a class or two?
Kathy D'Angelo?
Kathy D'Angelo. And I said, you know, that's a good idea, Kathy. So I took classes. And most of the classes I didn't care about. But it came to the producer's class. And I said, aha, that's for me. To tell people what to do and where to go and where to be, that's for me. So that was it. And before you knew it, I got people together and I started doing a program. And it just went on from there. And one recommended the other. And so I had a program. What could I tell you? That's it.
So you're looking forward to move into live New York broadcast television
No.
shows? Or
No, I'm not looking to do that at all. What makes you say that?
it seems like the next logical step, I suppose.
No, my logical step is to stay where I am. That's my logical step. So, if I want to do a show, I get people together, I do a show. I'm very happy.
So I understand you're the host of the show, so you're out here in the studio.
Well, of course.
Are you, so are you not, I mean, are you calling the shots? I don't know.
I always call the shots. I call the shots before the program starts.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you're on camera, you know, I call the shots.
And you have somebody else working the board saying, go to camera one. Or,
Yeah, right.
yeah.
Exactly right. Yeah. Do you think I'm going to let somebody tell me what to do? If you haven't gotten it by now, you're in trouble. What
So,
else?
so I guess the economic question in your life sort of is settled. I mean, you have your income handled.
Oh,
and-
I'm fine.
yeah.
I'm fine, thank God. Yeah. I took good care of myself. Yeah.
So one way to approach the economics of media creation is have yourself a life first and get into it after you've got your money
Exactly right.
figured out.
Yeah, yeah.
Brian, why don't you tell us a little about your life?
I've produced over 3-4 dozen shows in the last 2-3 years here at CTV. A new episode almost every month. I think we did about 16 shows a year. And I've worked with Gail Williamson, one of the local activists, and we've produced shows about the Homeless Garden Project, Habitat for Humanity, Greenways to School, Why Bike, Open Streets, as well as some music television shows, the Mojo Navigators, The Bog, the David Walker Band. We've done some shows on some of the local stores like Avatar. They did the Project Kamlari show, and there's many other episodes that we produced here locally at CTV. I moved to Santa Cruz from New York City about 5 years ago, and I was a mortgage banker in New York. And when the economic crisis, or whatever you want to call that, 2008, 2009 financial market, I decided that if there were 12 million people in New York City that were going to be out of work, that it would be a dangerous place to try to manage with no income and unexpected economic circumstances. So it occurred to me that the smart thing to do would be to put my family into a small beachfront community that was economically available to gain value and also not so financially difficult that you couldn't survive if things didn't improve. And we traveled the country, went up and down the East Coast, down the West Coast, went to Hawaii, and thought about all the wonderful places we could go. And we chose Santa Cruz. Now, we, of course, have been here before, and that was one of the questions people have often asked me is, had I ever been here before? And yes, I had. And I thought that Santa Cruz had good schools, and my kids were at that time not, like 2 of the kids weren't even in preschool, and one of them was going into preschool or going into kindergarten. So it just seemed a place to put 3 little kids in preschool, elementary school in Santa Cruz. That would be a nice opportunity for us to settle down and see how the economics of the country and the world moved forward, which, as I can see, has gone quite well, especially in New York and even in California. The real estate, finance, economic market is improving dramatically, especially now. And the unexpected future ahead is uncertain. But for the moment, I can tell you that kids are well, I'm well, it's a beautiful place to be, and I've met some really wonderful people here. Like Paula, I was here in downtown Santa Cruz walking around and I saw a camera person with a camera. Now, I'd been interested in camera making, filmmaking, television, video for years. I'd worked on a television show with my dad back 20 years ago. And I always knew that my vision of scripts and screenwriting and movie making and visualization of what I saw in my mind's eye was clearly in the filmmaking video world. And when I saw this one person whose name is Daniel Howell carrying a camera in downtown, I was like, where are you going? He's going to CTV. I reserved the camera and I was out using it. I was like, well, that's cool. So I came over here and I did an introduction. I learned to do camera work. I learned to do directing, producing, lighting, audio. And the first day I got here, I said I could be a director. And so one of the TV shows, Reality Church, gave me the opportunity to be a director of their show, like within a couple of days of being here. Which at that time, I was very confident I could be a director, but clearly my skill set was lacking from what I envisioned and what the technical needs were. So I took the classes here at CTV. I took the camera classes, I took the field camera classes, I took the director's class, the lighting, audio, the producers, and then I went into the producer's workshop. I didn't know how to do video editing, but I had this idea, wouldn't it be great if I could do that? I took the producer's class and I decided to make a show. They're like, you have to name your show. BTS Presents. What is that? Those are my initials. BTS Presents. I'll present something. They were like, well, you have to know more than that. And I was like, well, that's fine. The first show I'll make will clearly be my daughter singing songs, and she was 7 years old at that time, or maybe 6. I just figured that was an easy show. I did 3 shows, and after doing 3 episodes, one of the Fringe Fest and one of Policy Pillars with Jeff Hotchkiss, who used to be the web manager at Good Times, I had produced 3 shows within 3 months, and I was asked to make a series, which then gave me a regular time slot, 8 to 8:30, every Sunday night on Channel 27, and 11:30 to 12 for playback on Wednesdays, and a regular first of the month every Sunday, the first Sunday of every month, in the studio for 4 hours. And then I'm a studio series producer. At that time, I had the pleasure of working with Gail Williamson here in the Santa Cruz community at CTV, and we together designed those first 3 shows, and from then on produced more than 14 episodes that first year together. And every time I do a show, Gail and I come together to design who we're going to work with, what shows we're going to do, what we're going to make the show about. And in the first year, the goal was make shows without needing any editing. Because I didn't have any editing skills. The only thing I could do is make a show and hope like make it good and then air it right away, because editing was financially not useful or productive, and I also didn't have the skill set to do it myself. So I took the Final Cut Pro editing class here at CTV, and over the next few months I worked with a local editor to develop my skill set, and then I started working on my own editing of my own projects, and over the next 6 months I put hundreds and hundreds of hours into one 30-minute show. And every time I did a show, I would spend hundreds and hundreds of hours editing these shows that I was making to make them as good as I could make them. And over this last 2 years, I have become, as some people say, a fairly good video editor. I work with Final Cut Pro, I got my own laptop, and I now do all my editing from home, mostly between 11 o'clock at night and 7 o'clock in the morning when the kids are sleeping. And I do a lot of work, and I produce shows. But whatever it is, I find myself in business development. And whether business development is about putting together filmmakers, or coming together, gathering a team of volunteers to produce a television show, or whether it's going and finding one client to do a mortgage loan. It's all about business development and about people skills. And that's the area that I find that my interest is in focusing on.
I've found that amongst a lot of the filmmakers I was in college with, people skills were sort of a challenge. I mean, if you're an oddball artist who can't really relate to people, you don't become, I don't know, what's a standard job? A lawyer or a banker or a doctor or whatever. You become an artist because you see things differently and you don't relate to people very well. But you're saying it does require relating to people.
Well, especially at CTV, and I use CTV as a model of conversation because, as Paula and I have spoken about numerous times, is that CTV, the nature of CTV, the website, communitytv.org, is about community. The community of people who come together. What is more interesting than gathering together people who want to produce television shows in a community, who volunteer their time to make television shows, to be camera people, video operators, editors, produce the content, even be on the panel, set the sets, do the audio, the lighting. These are the things that require volunteers, and volunteers at CTV are people who don't get paid. And it's very easy to treat volunteers in an inappropriate way and have them not want to participate. And I think it's a tribute to the community that we are that brings together the people that are here tonight. The guest visitors, the producers, the talent, you, the panel, the people who are behind the scenes. It's really a tribute to what it is to be a volunteer and to respect other volunteers. And I think Brent, you can talk a little bit about that as what it's like to be an activist or work in the homeless community or be a volunteer in that community. I think the same kind of thing plays out in that area, taking care of people and wanting the best for those.
Is that true? What do you have to say about that?
Well, that's an interesting topic. That was really asking. So in activism, I wanted to do something that would affect change in a big way. That was 10 years ago, starting to ask that question. And little by little, inching forward, the protest model doesn't seem to do much in terms of maybe civil rights movement, yes, but we see a lot of protesting, not really manifesting a lot. So I wanted to actually kind of create something that would be lasting for people who really need help. And then I'm like, maybe a lot of us do. Homelessness, oh yeah, but what's over here is more attractive. Who wants to do homeless activism? Who really wants to? It's just not very sexy. It's not very appealing. And there's a whole class thing there where I don't want to be viewed as homeless. I don't want to get too close. So that I had to deal with all of these sort of internal things. But the more I started looking at social issues, homelessness kept being right in front over and over and over, trying to not look at it. But finally I had to say, okay, what if we did a homeless camp in Santa Cruz? What would that look like? So I did a lot of research on that. And then luckily that's when the video skills came in. I made a video presentation, a 30-minute video presentation. And I always say, careful what you ask for, because now I'm almost a professional homeless advocate, and I didn't ever think I would be. I didn't want to be this. But I all of a sudden I saw these huge spaces where I could be helpful, and so film video has helped that, provide that.
We just have a short time. Any last words you'd like to say? You look like you had something on the tip of your tongue there.
No, I just wanted to commend your work. It's really important what you're doing, and
Thanks, Nana.
Media, film, and digital video is one of the most powerful ways to tell stories and can make the most affect, which is why I chose to go there. And I think what you're finding.
Excellent. I want to thank all the guests for being on the show tonight. And thanks for watching. Tune in again next time for BTS Presents.
Things like this don't happen in the afternoon. 3 times a week or 2 times a day. Love is just sitting there eating alone. And I didn't expect a call from you. This were meant to open your eyes, to give you a chance to wait for me there. Still I see you sinking right back to sleep, and I have no more use for you.
You can support community television with a generous contribution. Send your tax-deductible donation to CTV, 816 Pacific Avenue, Santa Cruz, California, 95060. You can also support CTV by giving a donation online at www.communitytv.org. Then press the donate key.